everyone! Welcome to the first video in my What the Heck Is series. I have several conditions which are usually abbreviated to acronyms. I know those acronyms can be mystifying, can be confusing, so I want to present this What the Heck Is series to help you understand my conditions and what all these acronyms mean. Today, I will be answering the question, what the heck is EDS? After my explanation of Ehlers Danlos Syndrome, I will share with you a crazy fact that I just learned today. I was blown away by this news. If you already knew the fact that I will share at the end of this video, let me know in the comments and let me know how you knew, because I did not. So, what the heck is EDS? Well, for starters, Ehlers Danlos Syndrome is not one thing. Ehlers Danlos Syndrome is actually a group of related disorders. There are 13 different Ehlers Danlos syndromes. Last year, in 2018, the International Consortium on Ehlers Danlos Syndrome and Related Disorders reclassified the Ehlers Danlos syndromes and gave us 13 subtypes, which are classical EDS, classical-like EDS, cardiac valvular EDS, vascular EDS, hypermobile EDS, arthrochalasia EDS, dermatosparaxis EDS, kyphoscoliotic EDS, brittle cornea syndrome, spondylodysplastic EDS, musculocontractular EDS, myopathic EDS, and periodontal EDS. Ehlers Danlos Syndrome, as I mentioned, is a group of related disorders. Their relationship is that they are all connective tissue disorders. Some other connective tissue disorders that you may have heard of are lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, Marfan syndrome, and osteogenesis imperfecta. Now, those aren't related like EDS are because some of those, like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, are autoimmune conditions. Others, like Marfan syndrome and osteogenesis imperfecta, are also genetic, but the mechanism by which the connective tissue is disordered is different than in Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. In Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, there is a genetic mutation, often in collagen genes. Now, collagen is not the mutated gene in every form of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It is not known to be in my form, hypermobile EDS, but it is the most common mutation that causes the connective tissue to be faulty. Connective tissue exists in every organ system of the body. When most people think of connective tissue, they think of muscles, tendons, ligaments, things that stretch or are fibrous. However, according to sciencing.com, which had the most straightforward layman's term version of this, there are other much more academic sites that you can go to read the breakdown of the kinds of connective tissue, but I will give it to you from sciencing.com. There are 7 types of connective tissue in our body. The first is cartilage. There is connective tissue in bone. There is connective tissue called adipose. If you're a Doctor Who fan, you've seen the episode about adipose and you know that adipose is fat. There is connective tissue in your fat cells. There is connective tissue in your blood, not your veins. The blood itself has connective tissue. There is connective tissue in your lymphatic system. There is also fibrous connective tissue in your muscles mainly. There is a specific kind of connective tissue called elastic connective tissue. Elastic connective tissue is responsible for helping your veins to release and contract to pump your blood and regulate your blood pressure. It is a common misconception that people with Ehlers Danlos syndrome mainly suffer from loose joints due to faulty connective tissue. Even doctors think that that is the main problem, quite manageable, and therefore dismiss a lot of the true suffering of Ehlers Danlos syndrome patients. It should be clear that that is not the case. Because connective tissue exists in every system of the body, faulty connective tissue therefore exists in Ehlers Danlos patients in every system of the body. This phenomenon explains why we also tend to have vascular issues, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, blood pressure issues, problems with our bowels, other forms of dysautonomia, including the inability to regulate body temperature, and why we are prone to osteoporosis at a higher rate than the general population. I hope you are starting to get a better understanding of this condition, what it is, where it comes from, and why people who have this condition are often so sick. At this point in my explanation, people often suggest a collagen supplement. The thinking is, if you have problems with your collagen, faulty collagen, not enough collagen in your body, take this collagen supplement and it will help. Unfortunately, that's not how EDS works. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a genetic disorder. It is a problem with the way that our genes code for connective tissue. The only way to fix that problem would be to fix the faulty genes. At this point in medical and scientific history, we can't do that reliably in humans. Even after that explanation, some people still say, well, this collagen wasn't created by your genes. Therefore, it's a great replacement. It's untainted collagen, ready to go, ready to be used in your body. Again, unfortunately, that's not how it works. When you ingest a collagen supplement, your body actually breaks it down into its component amino acids. So some B vitamins, a few other components that I can't remember, and it's up to your body to use those things to rebuild whatever cells and forms of tissues that your body needs at the time. A healthy body may use those components to build collagen or to build connective tissue, but not necessarily, and an EDS body would take that in, break it down into its component parts, and use those component parts however. But it would not be able to reform that collagen supplement into effective collagen in the body. Nor can EDS be managed like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, because those are, as I mentioned before, autoimmune conditions. This is a genetic condition and therefore is completely different when it comes to how we are treated medically. I know that some of you are curious about what symptoms specifically need to exist in order to receive an EDS diagnosis. For pretty much all 12 other forms of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I can't tell you much. I'm not an expert. It's a lot to memorize. I have read all of the criteria for each one, but the main thing to know is that each of those has a genetic test which can confirm the diagnosis. The kind of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome that I was diagnosed with does not yet have a genetic test. So it has this list. This is the diagnostic criteria for hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome as of 2018. I linked to this specific form in my EDS diagnosis journey video if you want to see this form for yourself, but I will give you an idea just on my own body of what EDS looks like and how I qualified for the diagnosis. The form is broken up into 3 major criterion, and within those there are also more criterion. Major criterion 1 is generalized joint hypermobility. That is tested by the Beighton scale. The Beighton scale tests your joint hypermobility. I will show you what I score on the Beighton scale. Each pinky finger greater than 90 degrees. Most pinky fingers can't even go straight up. Mine can go pretty far back. I won't do them as far as they can go because it's not good for my joints, and especially because I dislocated this pinky putting on a t-shirt last night, and it is still a little bit sore. I don't want to give it any more reason to come out of place. I can touch my thumb on both sides down to my wrist. That shouldn't happen. I also dislocated this thumb yesterday, so I won't show you on this side. On the Beighton scale, you get a point for each party trick that you can do. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are hard to show in my current camera setup. 5 and 6 are if both of my knees hyperextend. When I stand up, it looks like my knees are locked and a little bit bowed backward. In high school, my swim coach always told me not to lock my knees while I was standing on the pool deck because he didn't want me to faint. I can't stand without my knees being locked. That's how my legs go. Number 7 is that I can bend over and without bending my knees, touch the floor in front of me with my hands flat on the ground. 8 and 9, I do not have. That would be if my elbow also hyperextended like my knees did. Mine go pretty much straight out. In order to qualify in this category, you need a score of 5 out of 9 on the Beighton scale. I score 7 out of 9 on the Beighton scale, so I have that criterion met. In criterion 2, I need to have at least 5 of a list of about, I think, 12 items. I have more than 5, and I will read you the ones that I have. Unusually soft or velvety skin. When I was first dating Matt, he thought that I put lotion on my hands often because they were just so unbelievably smooth. Mild skin hyperextensibility. That means that I can pull the skin on my hand or anywhere else on my body really farther than it should. It goes this way. The kids who I teach love this trick where I pull my cheeks out as far as I can. That's not actually as far as I can, but it hurts and it's not very safe for me to pull to the full extent that I can on my cheeks. Unexplained striae distensae or rubae at the back, groins, thighs, breast, and or abdomen in adolescents, men or pre-pubertal women, without history of significant gain or loss of body fat or weight. Although I have been skinny my whole life, I have giant stretch marks on my hips. I also have stretch marks across my breasts and a few stretch marks on my back. Bilateral pysogenic papules of the heel. That one I had to Google when I first read it. What it means is that you have little fat herniations on your heels when you put the weight of your body on your feet. It's pretty difficult to see these on yourself, so usually a doctor has to stand you up and look at your heels to see these fat herniations, these pysogenic papules of the heel. I have also found a way to see them on myself by pushing really hard on my heels, but the easiest way is to stand up and have someone else look. Recurrent or multiple abdominal hernias. As I mentioned in my EDS diagnosis journey video, I have a hiatal hernia. I do not have any other diagnosed hernias currently, but we have a suspicion of some lower abdominal hernias. The geneticist, looking at my age, said, you have all of these other things. It's very likely that you will qualify with recurrent abdominal hernias. Dental crowding and high or narrow palate. You can't tell now because I had years of orthodontia, but I had a very high palate. I still have a high palate, and dental crowding. In fact, as a child, my teeth were packed in so tight that my baby teeth couldn't fall out, and I had to have oral surgery to help some of my adult teeth grow in. Arachnodactyly, as defined by the following. Either a positive Walker sign on both sides. That means that I can wrap my middle finger and my thumb around my wrist and cover my fingernail with my thumb. I can actually do that with pretty much all of my fingers. I can do that on both sides. Or the other way to qualify for arachnodactyly is a positive Steinberg sign. The Steinberg sign is if you were to close your thumb across your palm and then close your fingers on top of your thumb and turn it around, does your thumb protrude from your fist? And mine does so on both sides. Again, I don't want to do it too far because this hand specifically is recovering from some recent dislocations. Pelvic floor, rectal, or uterine prolapse in children, men, or women who have not given live birth. I have 2 pelvic floor prolapses despite never having children, so I qualify in that category. Criterion 3 is a criterion of exclusion. In this criterion, they want to make sure that you don't have something else that might closely resemble hypermobile Ehlers Danlos syndrome. So, in this category, you cannot have symptoms that would be indicative of a different form of Ehlers Danlos syndrome. Incredibly stretchy skin is a symptom of classical Ehlers Danlos syndrome. Therefore, you would need to go on to genetic testing for that form and rule that out before you could get an HEDS diagnosis. In criterion 3, the second thing that needs to be ruled out is other connective tissue disorders, such as lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. The third exclusion is other genetic connective tissue disorders, such as Lotz-Dietz syndrome, Marfan syndrome, etc. So if your Beighton scale is in the correct range, you have at least 5 of the 12 symptoms listed in criterion 2, and you can be pretty well proven not to have any other things that would mimic EDS. You qualify for a hypermobile Ehlers Danlos syndrome diagnosis. Now, one big caveat to this is that in criterion 2, friends, I messed up criterion 2. Not only do you have to have 5 of the 12 symptoms that I mentioned, but you have to have either feature B or feature C also. At the time, I did not have feature B, which was a positive family history of Ehlers Danlos syndrome, but I did have feature C, which is at least one of the 3. Musculoskeletal pain in 2 or more limbs, recurring daily for at least 3 months. Chronic widespread pain for equal to or greater than 3 months. Recurrent joint dislocations or frank joint instability in the absence of trauma. I had check on that, So again, you have to have at least 5 of the 12 in this, and then either a positive family history or recurrent joint dislocations, chronic pain, those things. So there's the caveat. You get diagnosed much more quickly and easily if you already have a family history of others diagnosed with the condition. Okay, are you ready for the crazy fact that I learned today? I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw an article that was shared by the Ehlers Danlos Society's page. The headline was something like, "Adorable cat with EDS wins hearts." And I thought maybe it was just a cutesy lifestyle story about how a cat had droopy skin and so people with EDS could relate to the cat. I looked it up, and according to the Journal of Biological Chemistry and veterinarypractice.com, Ehlers Danlos Syndrome is a real phenomenon in animals. Your cat can have EDS, and actually it's pretty well known in the American short-hair cat varieties. Your dog can have EDS. It's most commonly seen in English Springer Spaniels. So if you have an English Springer Spaniel, does it have EDS? I want to know. Vascular EDS has been found in horses, usually after the horses have died suddenly and then a biopsy discovers the condition. And pigs, cows, mink, and one goat have been described with Ehlers Danlos syndrome. So there you have it. Did you know that fact? I didn't. I'm impressed. If you knew it, let me know in the comments. If you didn't and you're just as surprised as me, also comment and let me know. Let's share our surprise. Let me know if you're going to now go try to adopt an animal with EDS who just needs a little love from a fellow zebra. All right, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed this explanation. I hope that you learned something from it. And stay tuned for more what the heck is videos. Bye.